podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
Greetings to sisters. So there we have it. Another whole season in the books, both for us and as managers, and us as WGTA. That's season 9 done, Sam. On to La Decima of 10 years doing the show next year, which is scarcely believable. And we're in for one last time for this year, for 25-26, to run an annual review of the campaign that we all lived through, enjoyed, or more likely endured. Joined as always by Sam, probably one of those who did endure it. You're all right, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it was trying to be enjoyable at one point, and it looked likely to be enjoyable, but no, enduring is the word in the end, and quite glad to see the back of it. But aside from FPL, all good. Summer is well and truly here. I might have to open a window at some point because it is boiling in my room, but we are here to discuss the season proper. And as always, hello, we are Who Got the Assist for one final time for the 25-26 FPL season. On today's agenda, one last one of the year, so I suspect we'll give ourselves a little bit more time to review a few of the bits and bobs that have gone on. Hopefully this will be helpful for you if you're reviewing your own season or looking ahead to next season and trying to right a few wrongs ahead of the 26-27 season. Of course, we'll start off with Game Week 38 review and then move on to a more general season review, looking back at what may be mistakes and correct decisions we made along the way and what wrongs we would probably right next season as well. Of course, then looking towards Tom's data, a data review as always at this time of year. How has FPL changed? There's been a few pretty significant and seismic changes this year, which we'll be going into, and then moving on to some predictions as to what the game might look like next season and how FPL towers themselves might react to what we've just seen. And then, of course, rounding off with how we got on this season in terms of 1 week punts and some of our season long bold claims that we made at the start of the year. And then, of course, a bit of an annual tradition, isn't it, Tom? We go through our end of year awards ceremony, which is a little bit of fun at the end of the pod. It shouldn't take too long. Of course, it is Wednesday, the 27th of May. The Premier League is all wrapped up, but we've still got a couple of European games going on. So we've got Palace tonight in the background. And of course, your team, Arsenal, in the Champions League final come the weekend. So very good luck to, well, both teams there. For now, though, for one final time, Game Week 38 review. Shall we do it?
Yeah, go on, let's do it. So yeah, a really stressful half hour before deadline, Sam. Personally, I was at home with the baby while my partner and my eldest went out for a picnic. And she woke up at 2 p.m. when I was basically frantically scrolling for leaks and trying to find what the hell was going on, wanting feeding. So there I was, sort of, baby, making up a bottle, like, crap, what if I missed something? The FPL site goes down. So yeah, it wasn't ideal. But in terms of FPL, the leaks just threw everything out. So I just did not see a world where Haaland didn't play. And I think that totally it just changed the plan that I'd settled on, which was to simply move Saka to Szoboszlai. Cherky and O'Reilly not playing as well meant that my bench players came on in Tavernier, thank God, and Hill, and I only had one free transfer. But as the clock ticked towards deadline, didn't get anything on Arsenal. I was genuinely worried I'd end up with maybe 9 men at the end if Gabriel and Gyökeres didn't play either, which meant a hit, which I was dead against initially, came into play as a possibility, which did make sense given the possible absentees. So I did Haaland to Bowen. I was keener on Richarlison before the week, but I must admit, given how I was looking to consolidate, I'd seen Bowen had been bought by so many people. I thought I'd just go with that, West Ham needing the goals. And then just at deadline, I settled on a bit of a romantic buy. Like I thought, well, I want a City player for Villa, but what's that team going to look like, etc. So I got Salah in for Saka for one last time for a final hit. So that's 2 hits this season that I've taken in total. I think that's more of a heart pick than the head picks, which were Foden or Marmoush. Marmoush didn't play a single minute, of course. And yeah, both those transfers listed many points. I actually didn't have any time to think up my captaincy. I had initially planned to shuffle it over to Bruno if Haaland was out. But as I'd swapped Haaland to Bowen, I realised after the deadline that I was going with Bowen armbanded just by default, which was weird, but obviously worked out fine. But at half time, though, I was in despair. I was 112k, no returns. Bruno, who'd got an assist, etc., negative EO smashing me. But luckily, the second half started by Tav scoring the equaliser for Bournemouth and Bowen having the goal and assist. As my differential captain rescued me and turned it into a more than decent final day for me. So yeah, up to 70k overall for the end result, 63 points net, 67 gross, and my third top 100k in 4 years. So yeah, good end to the season. Not a last day which can live long in the memory, but it still was kind of good to just get a green arrow to end the year with. I feel very bad saying all that though, because obviously it didn't quite work out that way for you, did it?
No, but first of all, congratulations. That's another top 100k for you. So yeah, very well done. And you made the correct decisions on the final day and played it with a straight bat, which is exactly what you needed to do, and it paid dividends. So that again is just something to take note of for next season, that even in a week where everything is going wrong, playing it the sensible way often does pay dividends. Enter Sam. I took my first and only hit of the season, which, given that we didn't even have the Saka news by the deadline, it was a little bit ropey decision making. I honestly, if there was one week this season where I'm not proud of my decision making at all, it would be this week. But my excuse was I needed to go different because I was already 25 odd points behind the top 100k. So I went as rogue as possible, brought in the players with the lowest possible ownership I could think of that had a decent chance of upside. Obviously, we got the news on all of my City players not starting comfortably before the deadline, so I was able to react to that a little bit. What I didn't know was, of course, the Arsenal news. Gyökeres, Gabriel and Saka all missing out. That news came about 1 minute after the deadline, if I remember correctly. But it also didn't help that I was at a wedding, quite drunk, and had to sneak off to a bathroom to read all of this team news about 5 minutes before the deadline, where I very quickly, and I really mean very quickly, had to come up with some decisions. And in the heat of the moment, beer induced -4 to bring in Foden and give him the armband. I got the hesitations on Marmoush because it seemed like a lot of the World Cup players for Man City was missing out all of a sudden. So I was like, okay, well, Foden's not going. He's got to play. He's just absolutely got to start. Messaged you. You were very similar on Foden as well. So I went with Foden, gave him the armband for no good reason other than I knew he'd be very, very low ownership. And he is sometimes explosive. Brought in Richarlison instead of Bowen because I knew Bowen would be higher ownership. So I went with the lower one because I needed to chase hard. That didn't work. And Palmer in for a -4 for Saka, just because I had a gut feeling Saka was going to get benched. I just couldn't see it by the time we got closer to the deadline. The odds of like the goal projections via FPL Joe were like taking a nosedive for Arsenal. So I kind of assumed they were playing a C team. So I went for Palmer. That one actually did work out. But yeah, Foden, nothing from him, although very close to a goal, which would have at least probably got me about a grey arrow. And then, yeah, pretty much everything else that could have gone wrong did. Tav got his goal, very well taken goal as well, I might add. And Bruno, my only other returner outside of Palmer, and obviously Bruno hurt. So, yeah, finished the season with 3 consecutive red arrows of 10 plus points, which is great. Having been 1 point outside the top 100k with 3 weeks to go. So, yeah, really, really great end of the season. And disappointed in my decision making on the final day, but until that point, as we'll see, I'm not overly critical of myself. There are mistakes that have been made, but this one is the worst of them all by a long, long way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just context though, isn't it? At the end of the day, like you were unable to be in your kind of natural habitat around this time, as it were, and you had to do the best in the circumstance that you had, and
yeah,
it's just it's unfortunate, and but I think that you weren't alone in being in that situation. And I said on Blue Sky that I really think that it'd be no skin of FPL's nose to just change the deadline on the final day. Like, I don't see why they don't. Just because they must know all of this stuff comes out. Like, why not just have the deadline being 5 minutes before kickoff? Like, just on that one occasion, it baffles me that they haven't thought of it. It's such an easy win for everybody. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's kind of just, even though, as you said, this is the only week you're not happy with decision making, it does sort of in some ways kind of symbolize your season, how it went. Last minute Foden goal ruled out by a bum being offside, or like the end of his bum cheek. I mean, it's just been your way this year a little bit. But it made sense to do what you did.
The only consolidation there is I didn't even realise Foden had scored a goal full stop because I was at the wedding. So I didn't keep track of anything the entire day. I just made my moves and had a look at the end of the game. So I wasn't even aware about Foden. I had to do some crazy stuff to even give myself a chance. And as I said, I think on the last pod, I don't really care whether it's 250k or 101k. Yeah. It was a 5-figure rank or bust for me. So I took the chances. Honestly, even if the deadline was at kickoff, I don't think I would have done too much differently. We would have had confirmation on Saka, Gyökeres and Gabriel. But I mean, barring taking like a -8 or a -12, looking around at my team, there's not much else I would have done. Like, no. I don't think many decisions would have changed. So it is what it is. We'll go again next year.
Exactly. So let's zoom out from that game week 38 and just kind of, if you don't mind indulging us a little bit, just discuss our seasons a tiny bit here. Shout out to FPLoptimized.com, search out for the charts, and it's on YouTube, and we'll obviously kind of verbalize what's in front of us. I suppose, Sam, this chart, which shows your realized points versus your kind of projected points, points to one thing, which is that you were incredibly unlucky this year. And I've said it to you, I've lost count. Honestly, I was thinking about this earlier on. I've lost count of the amount of times that I've basically said right decision, wrong outcome to you this year after a game week. And you've obviously, I know you and Mo had quite a long discussion about how this year, if you've got something slightly wrong, like, it's punished you severely. And I think that your season chart testifies to this, like, immensely. Like, it just feels like you've played well. It's not come out in what we've seen in terms of your overall rank when we've reached the end of proceedings, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I do feel like I've been unlucky at quite critical moments, but there are mistakes that have undoubtedly been made throughout the season. There have been flashpoints that I can like kind of call back to, especially around the Christmas period where I was a little bit more bullish on Saka's expected minutes than I probably should have been, was then punished very harshly by Rice then happening to get a brace when he was meant to be injured. But there are a few instances like that where I took maybe, you steal some grapes from a supermarket and you get sent to jail for life kind of thing. It was like the punishment didn't fit the crime necessarily. There was the whole Thiago Ekitike like switcheroo around about that time as well, where I think I timed them exactly in the wrong way, where Thiago to Ekitike coincided with Thiago starting to score. Meanwhile, Ekitike stopped. And then when I put it back and corrected, in inverted commas, my mistake, it went back the other way. So there's a lesson to be learned there about maybe being a little bit less reactive, a bit more patient at times. But I don't think I've been like overly impatient. I think it's just the times where I have moved, it's punished me one way. And the times where I didn't, it's the players that I didn't bring in that got the points. Now, I don't think I changed many of elements of my game from this season alone, but there are always hot streak players that I tend to miss out on. And when you're overperforming on the underlying data, that doesn't necessarily show up on these kind of graphs, because this is obviously almost like based around expected goals, expected returns. If you're overperforming on that, it's because you're in form, and form isn't something I really play into all that often. So I think I'm more likely to get unlucky than some other managers on this chart. But yeah, nevertheless, to see my expected be 40 points above the Bullet Wisdom average, which is a very respectable league, like tier average to look at, and actually get realized of -8 or 9, I think that's about a 50-point swing. That 50 points would have put me quite comfortably at about 60k, I think, for the season. I would have taken that, even if I just matched my expected returns.
Yeah, of course.
And obviously that leaves room to get lucky as well. So, mistakes were made, but I do feel a little bit unlucky. It all sort of fell apart going into that Christmas period. You can see it on the graph if you're watching on YouTube. Like, I was trundling along pretty nicely, like matching my predictions until about game week 18, and then it just starts to separate, and every week I get like another 5 points, another 5 points, and it just like climbs and climbs and climbs to the point where I do need to do some crazy stuff to chase. And obviously then you up the risk profile, and then it gives you more of a chance of widening that gap as well as narrowing it. So yeah, you kind of dig yourself into a bit of a hole when you're chasing, and you can get lucky and get out of it, but it also gives you the opportunity to get further into that hole, which is what happened for me for quite a bit.
Yeah, I think you did come desperately close to rescuing it, and I think that's the thing that
that's haunting me.
Yeah, exactly. But I think as well that should, oddly, to look at it another way, should be maybe a source of kind of like comfort that actually you were playing well, you just hadn't got the luck, and you kind of almost got out of it. And it wouldn't take very much next time round for a couple more things to go your way, and suddenly you're kind of cruising at a decent rank, and your play style suits being there more than perhaps thinking that you've got to kind of do something crazy, like you say, to try to kind of retrieve where the situation. So
yeah,
I think
it doesn't come
that's a
naturally
good
to
thing.
me.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a positive you can take from it. I think we both had pretty poor 36, 37, 38s. And for you, yeah, that was kind of a nail in the coffin, really. Unfortunately, that it just didn't. Yeah, it didn't work. But I don't know. I suppose you look at your chart and just think, well, I'm not going to change very much. That's kind of how I look at it.
Too much.
Like, I haven't done anything particularly, but it's not like complete abdication of responsibility. As you said, mistakes were made, but you can't look at it and think, oh, I've just played awfully this year and I need to resign and delete my account and never come back. That's not the case at all.
Yeah, I hope not. I'd like to be here for season 10 of WGTA. So please don't fire me. I can turn these results around. I promise, boss. Yeah, it's just annoying, isn't it? But yeah, these things get quickly forgotten, and I'm happy with the majority of my play. There are notes that I've made throughout the season that I'm like, yeah, that was a mistake. But I don't like looking at mistakes based on outcome. I like looking at them before the outcome is given. It's like, okay, did I react in the heat of the moment? Like, as soon as I brought in Palmer for a -4 and captain Foden this weekend, I was like, the deadline went, I was like, yeah, that was stupid. Like, why would you do that? That's not good play. And looking back at like Thiago, Ekitike, the switcheroo, like in hindsight, not great FPL playing. Like, just hold on to the Thiago in the first place. He's on penalties, he's getting 90 minutes and was cheaper. Was just correct to hold on to him in the first place and save myself the hassle. So yeah, I would prefer to look at the input of decisions rather than the outcome. And look, that outcome can go either way. Could have gotten really lucky with poor decision making. And there were probably mistakes that I made that actually were rewarded with positive variance throughout the season that I've forgotten about. And I need to probably have a look back at those and make sure that I'm not making as many of those mistakes either. Even if the result was good, the decision might have been bad, and vice versa.
I'd maybe call you a Leicester You know, when they just about avoided relegation, but all of the team was playing in a certain way. The data was trending upwards, and the next year they went and won the league. You know, don't change
Are you
anything.
calling me Spurs right now?
It'd
Same
probably be all
point, same
right.
goal difference.
I mean, let's not go too far. Let's not go too mad. But yeah, I think you know, don't be proud of the rank, but I think in terms of the way you've played, I wouldn't be too concerned. Obviously, there's some people who are just like, oh, expected points don't mean anything, all this sort of crap. But I
Yeah,
think
of
that
course,
it's a very nice way to look at your season, especially if you've kind of had a difficult one. As for me, I'm obviously, given how hard anecdotally everyone seems to have found it this year, I kind of feel relieved more than anything else to be nabbing a top 100 finish again. I was thinking about the start. I was thinking about it today, and we were both saying kind of game week 5, 6, 7. I've never seen the start like it. Like, we're both in the millions early doors. And, you know, I did uncharacteristically, and this is testament to your impact on me, Sam, as I said to you the other day, I did actually play that pretty patiently. Like, I didn't take hits this year. I ended up with just 2 taken, whereas normally I'd take on 10 to 14, I'd think, which really helped me in not, I guess, like overreacting to weekly muses and the weekly sort of mini crises of, oh, I don't own this player, oh, I need to get him in. And that really kind of helped steady the ship, because I managed to pull together, I think it was kind of 13 green arrows in a row in the end.
Yeah. I mean, look at that run around, it's like what, game week 13 onwards, like that run, it's like a mountain. It's climbing and climbing and climbing, which is lovely to see.
Yeah, and it's again like the relative, the predicted points are kind of leveled off. So I've managed to outscore the average. So maybe the predictions. So maybe I just got lucky. You never know. But yeah, I mean, it kind of just meant that by the time we got to the end of the season, at the time I really needed to be pushing on, I was there or thereabouts. And the Chips, despite my reservations about them making very samey teams, they did the job in terms of getting me where I needed to be. But yeah, I also got lucky. I mean, you've given the example exactly. I was on the other side of the Thiago Ekitike thing, because that was when Bruno got injured. I didn't need to sell Ekitike, Thiago to get Ekitike. I could just sell Bruno and do the swap that way. So I was able to go for a 3-4-3, and then other people had to swap one for the other and just got punished by that to an egregious extent, basically. I think there were a couple of the key weeks for me, I think, was the game week 17, the AFCON refresh week. I spaffed all 5 transfers in one go, and I got 97 points, which is my highest game week score and game week rank of the season. It was probably not the best gameplay in the world, but again, that was something that really helped me along. And game week 20 as well was a great week for me in that Thiago vein. That was when he scored the hat-trick against Everton. I also had Chow, who scored 17 points for me that week. So it was 2 kind of unique hauls, which were a really nice cushion for the rest of the year. But yeah, the end kind of felt like it kind of stuttered, didn't it? I mean, I was 35k after game week 35. But it was kind of small decisions, like loads of small decisions not really working out, and to a lesser extent than you, obviously. But selling Semenyo for Cherky and with knock-ons like benching Senesi's small run of points and buying Gyökeres didn't help me much. And I think it was 13 points I got to 100k before buy in the end. It was 12 points off top 50k. So it was. Yeah, it was okay. It was fine, but it would have been nice. It would have been nice to have broken top 50k. But hey, that's for next year.
That's one hauling player all season long, by the way. Like, if one score had been changed or one proper captain return was a double-digit haul, then you're top 50k. Like, it's one specific result that could have changed that for you. So you're so close to nailing an incredible season. So yeah, you are not far off at all.
No, I don't think so. A couple of things as well I was thinking about. Assuming the Chips remain the same next year, I'll definitely bench boost game week 1 again, despite having a terrible start. It was just very good to get that out of the way, especially when we got to the time when I got into those green arrow list, that sort of climb, just because other people were still sort of thinking about, oh, do I bench boost here, do I bench boost there, and it just gave me that a bit more clarity, a bit more room to just maneuver and think without having to kind of figure out what the hell am I doing with my bench. You know, Mark Yu being a bit of an OG of the season just because he was just so useful as the third sub. I think, you know, the big lesson maybe for me comes nearer the end. I was reading 11FI's article about decision making, which I do 11FI as 11 the number IFY. I definitely go and seek that out. And he was talking about kind of decision making, so stuff that we've been banging on about for years. But within it, he mentioned, and something that was important for me as well, which is I kind of stopped doing the things which has served me well throughout the season. So Semenyo to Cherky, that sort of move was the sort of move that I'd been avoiding all year. And doing that move at that point, perhaps I got a bit greedy because I'd kind of had a few good weeks. But even though it's kind of only one example, I think it is a good sort of symbol of the sort of thing that I need to learn from, or at least remember in future, for why I shouldn't be making moves like that. So I thought that's kind of the main learning is actually the end of the year. Maybe a bit of peak M rule in there, but my peak was pretty good. It's just the M wasn't great. Maybe there's a case I should need to roll transfers more, thinking about me spending all the 5 free transfers at AFCON. But I do think being kind of fairly aggressive and making early moves, as evidenced by my high team value, which was irrelevant actually this year. But if West Ham had gotten the doubles, I think actually that would have really come to bear. Is part of my play style, so I don't really know whether I should completely change that. I don't think I will. But yeah, I mean, I just feel relief really. I was actually sadly a bit nervous on Sunday about ending up outside the top 100k, like fumbling it completely. And I was just when Bowen's goal went in, like it wasn't like excitement or joy, it was just pure relief. You know. So yeah,
you can just take it to the bank at that point, can't you? Really.
So yeah, that's our seasons, I guess. We're not going to change anything. We've learned nothing.
Yeah, well, that sounds about right. After 9 years of you doing this and 3 of me doing it, yeah, we don't learn quickly, do we? But yeah, I've made some notes of this season. I've obviously highlighted a few of them, and I think DefCon has made a big impact, which we'll come into in the later section. But yeah, I think generally we can both be relatively proud of the way that we played. I think we were both quite risk averse this year and hit averse at times where it would have been quite tempting to do that. And I think on the whole, that especially for you was rewarded. And then yeah, I actually forgot about the Semenyo to Cherky move. So I'm gonna mark that down as another mistake where until you see it, Semenyo wasn't going to be a bench player. He was getting decent minutes. Why sell him? Probably another mistake there. But overall, yeah, I don't think we've learned a crazy amount, have we? But maybe more lessons will be learned going into the next season after a summer off.
Yeah, I hope so. And quickly, we don't really do much in the mini league anymore. Maybe we should. But congratulations to FPL Offbeat Ninja, aka Vincent. After I don't post the X anymore, but very well done. He ended the season at a dream OR of 172. Lovely stuff. Congratulations.
That was my team ID.
Wow, amazing.
That's really weird. Yeah.
That's cool. That's what you're going to be next year, Sam. You'll be doing what Vincent did next year. That'll be you. That'll be the top content creator in all the land. Ditto the top 5 of 11FI, who we've just mentioned, aka Stephen, who's the top FF manager in the world, actually, by quite a long way. In second, Michael Law in third, and Andrew McKinnon, who I've met actually in real life, I think, way back in the day, and Matthew Nuttall in joint 4th. Also spotted a friend of the pod, Joe Kim, in 12th. Well done all. Incredible seasons. So let's move on to things we might be able to learn. So yeah, here's the usual state of the nation bit from each year, a bit of a data analysis from me. I'll stick to the punchlines off as much as I can, rather than talk through every single data point. That's just bad audio and bad showmanship. Albeit I'll put the data on the screen, possibly post it on Blue Sky, maybe on Nets with the replies turned off, but probably not. To get this data, by the way, I've used a couple of sources, which is Vastav on GitHub, who's a bit of a goat of this, and also a guy I found on Google called Wafir Manakad, who runs a spreadsheet which he keeps continually updating, which is really useful. So yeah, this is this year's FPL. Let's start with the overall points scored set of the scene. There is the big thing to point out is that this year we've seen more points scored in FPL by its players, not by its managers playing the game, which is an important distinction we'll come to in a minute, than ever before. 34,382 points, which means nothing, but I'm just going to say the number was scored this year, which marks a 3.71% uptick on last year's total, and last year, I remember saying at the time, last year was an all-time high in FPL points scored with 33,152 points. That was because last year there were more goals scored than ever before in the Premier League. The last 2 years, in fact, have seen this real sort of sea change in FPL points being scored that's worth noting. So 24-25 was a 6% uptick on the year before. And the last kind of between 2021 and 23-24, you normally saw about 31,500 points being scored, something like that. So you're now looking at kind of 2,000 points more being scored. What caused it? We'll get that in a minute. But if you listen to previous pods, you can guess at this. But one thing that immediately kind of gets thrown up in our minds is what gives. You look, if you've looked at your season total versus last year, and indeed, I've seen a lot of people note that this year's winner scored far fewer points than last year's winner. Something seems a bit incongruous about that. But how are more points being scored by the players, but less points by us as managers? So all in all, who got the points? Where are the points being scored? And I guess, sorry, Sam, we'll get to you in a minute. What's key here is to look at exactly which players were scoring points. So we looked at the 200 Club of Tom Campbell not very long ago, which is our usual way of measuring how points were scored each year. It's safe to say in terms of these, it's not been a vintage year at all. Antoine Semenyo's goal against Aston Villa took him to just inside the top 200 club and saved it from being its joint worst year of all time. There are only 4 200 club members this year, with Semenyo barely making it on 202, Gabriel on 209, and then Bruno on 235, and Haaland just eked out top spot on 239. That's the second joint lowest over the last 10 years, by the way, 4 members. The worst ever year was 2017-18, when just 3, Salah, who got his 303, Sterling and KDB made 200. So there's a low number of 200 clubbers. Looking at the premiums as well, so players, we looked at this too, players who were priced more than 10 plus at the start of the year. This year saw them score the lowest average points ever in kind of the time that I've been looking at this. So just 148 points on average, whereas in the past you saw scores of between 170 to 190. And last year, indeed, we saw an average of 216 amongst premium scorers. This year, just 148. So a real underperformance by the premiums. So in sum for this bit, we've got our highest number of points scored by players ever in the game, but we've got our lowest number of 200 club members and the premiums haven't been performing, Sam. It's a bit strange, all in all. So to bring us to the bottom line here, to figure out exactly who has been scoring points, I'd look at players scoring over 100 points, so the 100 club, if you will, over the last 6 years. What I've seen again is an uptick in players amassing triple digits this year. So 139 players got there this year versus 125 the year before, which again is a sea change from the past, where we typically see about 105 players scoring over 100 points. Basically, more points are being scored, but more players are scoring more points. So it means that those points are just spread out. So there's no way we as managers, if you pile in things like effective ownership, if you pile things in such as the saturation of content, advice, the way in which we like to follow a bit of herd mentality a lot of the time, there's no way we could have covered all of these players. And that kind of in of itself leads me to think that the game has maybe changed in terms of the scoring, but we as managers, our behavior remains the same. This point, I suppose, just kind of goes to show that maybe in future we may not be as beholden to premiums as we have in the past. If more players are scoring loads of points, I don't know whether it's the depth of the premium as such. But I think we floated it a couple of weeks ago. I wonder if instead we begin to focus on building a squad of players mirroring real life, who are likely to be scoring decent points over the course of the season, especially with Salah leaving, meaning Bruno and Haaland, maybe Semenyo, and we'll see what they do with Gabriel's pricing. We're only left with 2 premiums now, I think, barring any kind of big ticket entries to the Premier League. So I just wonder whether a greater spread of players scoring points and also those sort of guys at the apex not performing does mean that things are going to change next year. But broadly, that's where the points are going. They're going spread rather than focused on a few select individuals like we've seen in the past. It's only 1 year, Sam, but what do you think of all of it? Is it the depth of the premium?
Yeah, well, it was the kind of the title of the pod, wasn't it? So I think we are both inclined to think that maybe the premiums are on the way out at the moment, generally speaking. Of course, Haaland's still going to be here, but with Salah leaving the game, and then you've also got players like Saka and Palmer underperforming. I'll come on to them in a minute. It does feel like the premiums are going to be at a premium from now on until we get some more big ticket players to the league. On the general underperformance of premiums this year, I think two things have happened. One was, well, I suppose three. Number one is Salah just wasn't at the peak of his powers anymore. So he's to one side. That's one premium kind of out of the game. Then you've got injuries, which I think has had a massive impact. If you think Isak as well, Palmer was injured for a significant portion. And even when he was back, he wasn't really at his best for the majority. And Saka got injured, but because of his historic injury problems, Arteta had a very clear game plan throughout the year to make sure, well, I've got a great backup right winger. Saka can be rotated. He's not going to just be farmed out for 90 minutes, which brings me on kind of to the final point on premiums, which is squads, especially at the top of the league right now, are much, much deeper than they ever were in the past. You've got Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, all packing their, Chelsea as well, packing their squads with 20 plus players who are all of proven Premier League quality and easily could just walk into first team 11s for most of the league. So they're not going to be afraid to rotate when a player isn't quite at their best, or maybe just feeling a little bit lethargic. Playing so often in the Champions League and all of the cup competitions, I think we're going to continue to see players like Saka, like Palmer, getting rests every now and then. And it will be just the odd player like a Bruno Fernandes that will maybe stand out as someone who you can rely on most weeks to get those 90 minutes every single week. And that probably does mean the premiums are less valuable to us, because part of why they're previously premium players is because you could rely on them to start week in, week out and get 90 minutes no matter what. When you look around now, you're struggling outside of Fernandes and then Haaland to an extent as well to even name players at the very top end of the game and the best teams who will reliably do that, who also tick off all of the other characteristics you want in a premium. And then we also come to the other element in the game, which is there's maybe a rising tide of other players, much cheaper players, who are benefiting from DefCons, who are benefiting from fewer goals in games as well, that previously wouldn't have been that appealing to us, but now netting 120 to 150 points a season, when, like you said, the average for premiums is only 148, they're very easily accessible. You've got players like Garner, Elliot Anderson, Dewsbury Hall as well snuck in there. Quite a lot of the defenders hit north of 160 points thanks to the DefCon this year. But you don't have to pay anywhere near the prices, and you can fill out a whole squad of players at that sort of price with one or two more expensive players like Bruno and Haaland. It was very easy to afford all of that for the majority of the year. So I think we need more Bruno Fernandes style players who are just undroppable no matter what, that are just fitness monsters, but also then get the penalties, the free kicks, all of the set pieces and good data to make premiums generally more interesting again. We're missing that at the moment. And the other premiums in the game, whilst they're like, we know on their day they're explosive, they've got all of those elements when they're on the pitch. They're on the pitch not as often for multiple reasons at this point.
Yeah. We need Bruno is the new Salah in that way. Salah was always kind of the player that you'd be counting on, similar to Bruno, to be on the pitch and have all the set pieces that matter. And yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how that evolves next year. I wonder whether there's going to be, especially with United in the Champions League, and Bruno likely to get 12 million plus as the price tag, what that means for him in terms of the league, and what that means for him in terms of kind of how with his, I think he's 32, isn't he? How
Yeah.
Carrick utilises him now, whether he can still play all those minutes, I'm sure he can, to be honest. But I mean, when Salah was 32, he definitely could. I can't imagine that his fitness levels and Bruno's fitness levels are that similar. But yeah, it's definitely something to kind of bear in mind. You mentioned Palmer a minute ago. We'll come on to him probably in just a minute. But I think to just talk about those positions, which again you touched on, that's the fun thing to sort of mop up here. So we've broadly kind of seen the spread of points and kind of the who got the points bit that I just explained. But to look at positions, we talked about this with Tom Campbell on the last international break. I think we've talked about this rather than the premiums actually, and pointed out then that defenders have absolutely smashed it. And this year has ended with that definitely being the case. And they've scored 3,000 more points than they did last year as a group, which is a 30.72% rise year on year for anyone counting, and bringing them closer, funnily enough, to the midfielder total than ever before. So just 3,000 points separates them now, whereas historically you've seen a gap of maybe 4,000 or 5,000. The reason behind this, there's two, and it's quite simple actually. One, DefCon, obviously. It's just pure added points at the end of the day. The data says there's 822 occasions where defenders scored over 10 DefCon this year. It's just gone. Meaning we've got an added 1,644 points to the mix. But number two is actually really important. So as I mentioned, the gap actually year on year is about 3,000. It isn't all DefCon. This year we saw more clean sheets in the league than usual. I've got to admit, this is just anecdotal. I didn't have enough time to look at this newborn baby work and stuff. But just from eyeballing the goalkeeper clean sheets this year versus previous years, for example, 10 keepers this year kept 9 or more clean sheets, 8 getting into double digits versus last year when only 8 kept 9 or more, only 6 got into double digits. And that is around the same if you kind of just spool backwards. The way the actual football this year, when it comes to DefCon, which was totally out of FPL's control in terms of the way the game evolved, just saw defenders really flourish. There's a bit of a kind of toxic mix, wasn't it? The perfect storm of having DefCon in the game and also more clean sheets than we've seen before. It says a lot. If you take the DefCons out, you do get close to 2021, 22 for defenders when they saw 10,500 points scored, because there were more clean sheets in those years. Those were the years when, like, the likes of Liverpool, you had Andy Robertson, Salah and Trent doing lots of points. So yeah, basically defenders scored more than ever before. They're now close to midfielders. And the reason is, yes, the pure entirely new point scoring mechanic in DefCon, but that's coupled with this year's evolution of what football looks like, which is more defensively solid, clean sheet producing tactics, which were employed this season versus the highest scoring yield from the year before. So it kind of, people are kind of pointing the finger at blame and saying, yeah, DefCon's ruined the game. I don't think that's true. I think that how football is set up, maybe as a result of last year, especially how my team has set up just to try to win the league, all these things have trickle-down effects on the game that we're playing in FPL because of how the football is. Like DefCon, as a pure injection of new points, definitely changed the game in terms of defender scoring. I think that's completely kind of indisputable, but the numbers aren't as massive as you'd think. And I think we need to emphasize the way in which the actual football was played this year too, because that played a huge part in what we all experienced this year in FPL. So it's not all just DefCon. It is just because of how teams set up. Basically blame Arteta for what you experienced this year a little bit, rather than blaming FPL for introducing a new way for points to be scored.
Yeah, I mean, I could not agree more with that. Obviously, DefCon has had an impact, as you mentioned. That was the point of it. They wanted defenders to be more competitive and players that you wouldn't have otherwise looked at to be factors this season. But they became more than factors, and that was beyond what they would have expected when they created DefCon in the first place. It is sadly just the way the style of the league benefited those kind of players as well. We saw a lot more of it throughout the league. Obviously Arsenal mentioned, but I thought more than possibly ever before, but certainly in quite a while, we saw a bunching of teams in the league this year. Even some of the very worst teams were never really getting battered. We didn't see many 4-5-0s this year, or more than that. There weren't very many whipping boys whatsoever. Even Burnley and Wolves rarely got absolutely tanked. So with all of that in mind, it was much more of a pragmatic approach, generally speaking, across the league. I think we'll see, and we always see this in cycles in football, like whatever trend might happen one season, eventually there's a counter trend to try and take down the previous trend. And I think there will be a general fighting back against this pragmatic approach that is created by the better coaches in the league over the next season or two, that does start to pick apart those more defensive, more pragmatic approaches that are working right now. So I think there will be a correction. Managers like De Zerbi, who actually played a pretty pragmatic approach himself coming into Tottenham, but with a summer of working with the team, new signings, he is a very attack-minded, fluid coach. I think that will have a slight impact. Same goes for Alonso. The three teams coming up as well aren't what I would call like unbelievably robust defenses. Like they're pretty good defensively. Obviously, in the Championship, none of them were terrible defensively, but they haven't come up with the same sort of reputation as Leeds or Burnley did in terms of their defensive solidity. So I think, generally speaking, we are likely to see a slight correction next season, but certainly within the next couple of seasons, because that's just how football works. And I think we got a little bit unlucky from an FPL point of view, of course, with that this season, and FPL themselves got a bit unlucky with the timing of DefCons. What I'd like to see them do is not overreact to the trend of this season, because then I think we might see another problem where, okay, we're going to price all the DefCon guys $1 million or $2 million more than maybe they should be priced. And I'm not saying don't increase the prices, by the way, we'll come on to that in a bit, but maybe find a middle ground somewhere, because I think it's likely that football also finds a middle ground over the next season or two. And it might sadly make a lot of these players non-options if they price them up too much.
Yeah. And context can be important as well. So imagine they put Anderson at 7.5 million, shiny new Elliot Anderson, got all the bells and whistles at Man City. Done.
Yeah.
Over. Goodbye.
Yeah. Never see him ever again.
Yeah. And I completely agree with you that, I mean, as you were talking, I was thinking about, Conte happening on a three at the back system, and then the Tiki Taka, and then everyone was playing that for a while, and then Tiki Taka showed up, and suddenly that became the oh man, it kind of, in kind of the trope of footballing narratives. We were in a moment, as football people like to say, but that moment is finite, and that there will be a way, unless we're kind of Fukuyamaing this and saying that Arteta has presaged the end of football history, and set piece ball, meatball ball is basically the be all and end all when it comes to football. No, I think that it won't be that way. But I mean, in summary, more points have been scored, but by more players. Premiums may not be as prominent going forward, perhaps. And DefCon supercharges defender scoring. I think that's kind of what's important to note about what we've seen this year, and it's backed up by the data. I was just saying to James in the chat that kind of those were kind of my hypotheses before I looked at the data, and it's kind of, some ways it's kind of like marking your own homework. If the data does say what you want it to say, but I mean, you're more than welcome to go and check, and you'll probably find the same thing. And I think that, I agree with you. Just before we kind of embark on a couple of predictions, I agree with you. I just don't think the game itself will change again on the macro scale like we saw at the start of this year. Despite what we've been saying about the sameness of the end of the season, it would be I would welcome it if they did try to do something there. But I suspect that, I think we both mentioned this, and you definitely said this, but they may want more data and to let the current kind of game setup sink in, not, as you said a minute ago, overreact how this year's gone in terms of making huge changes. And James and Planet as well made a good point that they shouldn't want to be setting expectations that each year some shiny novelty will be unveiled by them. I suspect there may be some kind of micro things, like minor adjustments to BPS or something like that. But I can't see them changing the game that much, especially kind of, I don't know whether they do this sort of analysis. I hope they do. If not, I'm available for hire. But I mean,
Mark, if you're listening,
yeah. But I think it's really important that they do kind of look at stuff like this and just kind of set it in context, because there's the sentiment about how people kind of have, as we've mentioned a few times, said that DefCon is like kind of a bit of a lightning rod for criticism about how this has been a bad year. And I think that it's really important to point out that football itself plus premiums being crap, those two are actually the cause.
Yeah.
You know, DefCon anger at DefCon's more of a symptom. It's not really the thing which is pissing people off. It's convenient because it's new thing to point the finger of blame at, but actually, I think it is the premiums, which is what's really interesting. James in the chat, I was about to mention this as well. We're mentioning ATCons, so attacking contributions coming in next year. I mean, I did think about that as I didn't want to predict that happening, but I did think I did wonder whether that would be something they'd be looking at. You know, you do 4 key passes in a game and you get 2 more points. I mean, there's potential, but it feels kind of to me like if something like that happened, then we kind of are going on the path to basically ending up in like Sky Fantasy Football, where you're looking at past years, or you're looking at the Bundesliga game where 300 points every week is what you're expecting from players because you're factoring in the shots they've taken, passes in the certain areas of the field, duels won, all of these things. It starts to get away from the innate simplicity that FPL is meant to represent to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
As much as me as an Anorak, I enjoy that. You got to think about the wider audience, don't you? So yeah, I agree with you, Sam. I think it's going to be micro changes. If we are wrong, then we're going to look very silly. But I suppose we just we'll embrace it as well.
Yeah, I think in terms of things that will probably just naturally change. Obviously, we won't have the AFCON transfers, which I think actually will be really helpful because it kind of stopped or scrapped any planning required around that time of the year, which is also when a lot of the most engaged managers do get that advantage during that period of the season where having a few transfers stocked up from good planning helps. So I think that being out of the game next season will help the engaged managers in the crowd a little bit. And then it's mentioned in the chat a little bit, I wouldn't be surprised to see a slight tweaking with how DefCon is laid out. I don't think it will change much other than maybe equal between midfielders and defenders in terms of like, okay, we're just going to have it at 12 points. Or maybe, as I think I said on this pod a while back, like 1 point for 10, 2 points for 15, 3 points for 20, just something like that. And then cap it at 20 for 3 points, something like that, just so that it's not like a one-off threshold and that you've still got something to be interested in. Like if Elliot Anderson has a screamer and gets 20 DefCons, that is better than getting 10. Like he's had a better game, or in theory at least. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. But again, those are very minor tweaks. It's not a game-changing new chip or new functionality where wingers are a new position. I don't see them doing anything like that. Like you said, the simplicity is what makes this game as popular as it is. It needs to be easy to explain to people to draw them in the first place.
Yeah, I think I remember there was a bit of a flirtation in the community with FPL reflecting the modern game and having DMs and AMs and wingers all split out, and it starts to get ridiculous because the point was made about like someone like Firmino, for example, like playing different roles, even in particular games. I mean, do you base it on the starting where he's normally starting or where he plays here? No, it's just we don't have a huge can of worms for FPL. But yeah, I mean, for next year, I've kind of laid out a few predictions here, and we've kind of touched on it. So one of them is DefCons get a bit of recalibration. I do think that, we said it a few times, maybe defenders needing to get 12 is the easiest kind of win for them, really, just to make it a bit less pervasive in the game. I don't know. Maybe I'll check in a minute while you talk. I don't know kind of whether that's going to change things massively, but maybe that might be one thing they do. Another thing they could possibly do is to maybe to tier it. So you mentioned the Anderson example there. Maybe that would be the thing. Yeah, so you get pretty much half. I've literally just looked at the data. You would get about you get half of the defenders scoring DefCon if it was up to 12. 430 versus 822. That's not half at all, is it? I'm an idiot, but that's that. That's about it's about half.
It's give or take.
53%. Yeah, so you get about half the defenders getting DefCon if they put it up to 12. I think that might be what they do.
Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't overcorrect it. I don't. I get why people are like a little bit miffed with DefCon because it has had such a big impact this season. But from my point of view, all it's done really is fill a hole that has been left by premiums and left by other picks in the game just through less attacking returns. There's nothing else good to pick, so we might as well just pick the DefCon points. And I think in a season where everything was about equal and the premiums were about as good as they normally are, and you've got a handful of 8 to 9 million picks that are also nearing 200 points, then yeah, DefCon's an option, but it's not the only option. We also saw far fewer defenders who are that good from an attacking return point of view as well. So I think all of those points together lead me to thinking you can recalibrate a little bit, but I probably wouldn't over adjust too much to what happened this season. I think maybe another season of data is required.
Yeah. I do think it would be an easy win from 12, but equally if I left it as it is, fine. As you said, as you're kind of hinting at, if the game suddenly becomes an attacking game all over again, and the DefCon numbers are very much sort of restricted to players on teams that you're not going to be interested in anyway because they're doing a lot more defending, then yeah, maybe we'll see that. But we've titled this pod kind of slightly provocatively about the end of the premiums, and so premiums kind of less important. I think there's something that I think will be spoken about a little bit at the start of next year. I think people will kind of look at this idea of like a nomium and spreading the money. I think there's always been an option, but I think it's something that I think more people will take seriously. And I've put it as a prediction here, but my personal feelings on it mirror what I suspect yours are, that I think that might be a bit of an overreaction to this year if people do go that way. I certainly don't think people are going to go without one of Bruno or Haaland at the start of the year, depending on fixtures. But I do think there may be some points where you look at this. And you mentioned Cole Palmer earlier. I wonder whether no World Cup, no European games next year. Similarly,
I like it a lot.
Is he next year's Bruno? Like, you already know that you're going to probably in the start of the season with João Pedro, Palmer, and Colwell in your team. I just feel like that's died in the wool already. 3 spots already taken.
Chuck Foden in there as well. Just saying.
Chuck Foden in. Oh, hang on. How are we going to do it with Bruno and Haaland, Sam? That's the question. But yeah, I wonder whether Cole Palmer is going to be the answer to premiums diminishing in stature, even if he doesn't get the premium price tag. Maybe he won't. I expect he'll still be around 10 though.
I think he will. Because people like Mark who know the game inside out are like running it and doing the prices. I would be surprised if they like overcorrected like they did with Rashford quite a few seasons ago. If you remember, they seemed to be like really price sensitive over Rashford. Whenever he had a poor season, they just lowered him way too much, and then ditto when he had a good season. I think with Palmer and Saka, they'll probably drop them a tiny bit, but I doubt they'll end up like 8 million assets. They'll be like 9 to 10.5, somewhere in that range again, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think that probably feels about right. I suppose that becomes a bit more of a question about which one of Bruno or Haaland do you go without. Maybe even Gabriel. I mean, is there a world in which that price gets boosted to a massive extent and they just kind of start to treat defenders? I mean, talk about it later on, but Gabriel, is it 30 starts this year of 209?
Yeah.
So 209 over 30 is basically 7 points per game, quick math. So that run rate, he basically gets 265, maybe just over. So he's the top scoring player in the game. Obviously, you can do that same thing with loads of other players, but you get my point. I mean, what's to say?
Highly.
Yeah, but what's to say? I mean, I don't know. I saw a bit of chat about this online. Like Gabriel's price being 7. I was like, no, just don't put it at 7. He's in everyone's team. No, they've got to do it. I think they'll go for 8-ish.
Yeah, I
that
wouldn't
has
be
to
surprised at
they
all.
have to make it into a
Yeah.
question. Otherwise, 7.5, you're like, maybe, but I'm still going to have him. 8 million,
Yeah.
that's when you start to think, all right, I want Palmer, I want Haaland, I want to put Bruno in, maybe some schmuck like Foden. God, what am I going to do here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to make it competitive against the other Arsenal defenders. That would be the key. Like if Gabriel's 8 and then Saliba's 6 or 6.5, then it's like, okay, decision time. Raya as well. Like maybe even Timber is like 2 million less or 2.5 million or 1.5 million less. Then it's a real like, oh, is it worth the saving kind of question. Yeah, I'm interested to see what a lot of the players look like after the World Cup as well, because we've seen, like, even with Palmer coming into this season, Foden as well. They played in the Club World Cup, was it the summer before, and they looked a bit jaded. Like it looked like they needed the break, and obviously this season has not palmed out for mapped out for players in the way that it should have done. Or the way they would have wanted. And now it's resulted in them needing the summer off from the World Cup to maybe regain strength for this year. So, yeah, we'll see. Gabriel, as a centre-back, you'd like to think he'll be all right, but stranger things have happened. That every season there are new things. It might not be Gabriel next season. It could very easily be someone else. And this time next year, we might all be like laughing at the fact that we had an 8 million Gabriel in our team and not Timber at 6, let's say, who went on to get 8 goals and 5 assists or something crazy. Like, you never know. Like, weird things do happen.
They do. I think he'll, let's see. But I think kind of an upshot of this might be that like we end up with maybe one of the premiums rather than both. Like the two-mium is going to be definitely kind of having Bruno and Haaland, that is, on the table. But I wonder whether, having just one of them and having that sort of spread of quality in your team, the 7.0 to 8.5 upper tier mid picks, is going to become very important to us as FPL managers. One, because obviously the kind of the fated price points thing where you can jump around from player A to player B, which we do see. But at the same time, it might be even more important next year. And we might kind of, end up with a bit of a world where you end up with your captain being that premium because of the price quality thing still happening, notwithstanding what Gabriel's price is. I don't think he would ever. No, there may be a world where he ends up being kind of the de facto captain, but I feel like that's going to be not. I can't really see that versus a world where this year I think our captain Haaland 30 out of 38 game weeks, for example. That sort of thing I think will still be the same. But I think that kind of the squad game I think is going to be kind of in kind of carrying on from that kind of diminishing of the premiums. I think that's the squad game mirroring real life could be a thing next year a little bit more. Not that it isn't already, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think it has been quite a bit this season, to be fair. It's just DefCon's kind of masked that a little bit, and there's been quite a few nice cheap picks in teams like Leeds and Sunderland, for instance, that has meant that we don't necessarily need those players to all be 7 or 8 million. We've been able to get the 4.5 million defenders who are also just picking up DefCon for fun. Even Senesi and Hill as well coming in at very reasonable prices has meant that we've effectively got that, but still with the price points of cheaper players in certain positions, which means that we can spend a bit more in other areas if we even needed to. But yeah, I think it's going to more and more reflect a squad game where the full 15 are all very playable most weeks. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm interested to see how it's going to shape out next year, especially with Alonso's wing backs and De Zerbi taking more of an effect. I think we're going to see some changes to the meta.
Yeah, no, I think we need that. Especially after this year, but definitely a lot of people are going into the summer, or some mad people are playing World Cup fantasy. But I think a lot of us are desperate need of recharging those batteries. But hey, there we go. That was the year that was. Let's move on to the 1 week punt and long season on bold claims to round those up. I won the 1 week punts. 254 last week. I got Somerville with the assist at the death for the West Ham's third goal. I can't remember who scored it, but it doesn't matter. And you ended up on one. But it was Wilson. Of course, it was Wilson. And you ended up on 199 with Szoboszlai blanking.
I did change it to Salah on the pod, but that's my
okay.
my one way of I remember I was just like, oh yeah, screw it, go with Salah.
No, 205 then.
205. I've got double 100. So yeah, 205. We'll call it.
Okay.
But yeah, didn't fare much better in the bold claims. Although one of us did get one right.
Yeah. So I think this is they had to be bold, right? They all sound
Exactly.
stupid, but the one that I did get right now doesn't sound stupid, but at the time was something that people scoffed at.
Yeah, including me.
Yeah, bold claims were for me. One that Dom Solanke was the highest scoring FPL forward under Thomas Frank. Well, that didn't go well. Triple Man United in FPL was a template for at least 5 weeks. That was kind of similar to what I've said about Chelsea. That was kind of the same reasoning, but I think that maybe they had less established players. Obviously, had the Amarin problem, and so
you also weren't that far off on that one. There could have, like, if Dorgu stayed fit, I think you were probably quite close on that one. Because Bruno's in. Dorgu, if he stayed fit, probably would have become template. And then it only really took like one of them, Burma or Cunha, to go on I don't think you were miles away from that.
No, I wasn't. There was definitely kind of a time period there, wasn't there? When there was definitely a possibility of, United had a really good run of fixtures, didn't they? At one point or other, that was the time where I was just like, yeah, people are going to. I think it was around Christmas time.
That's also when Bruno got injured, which ruined that as well.
That's what it was. It did really for me though, because obviously could sell him for XT can keep Thiago, but and then the last one I did get right. Salah scores less than 150 points. He did. I kind of just felt like it was the end of an era. And so it proves with Salah. I think he ended up on 100. I don't know. I mean, what did he end up on this year? 123, something like that, 124. And so
that is a drop, isn't it?
27 points in on that. But I think I initially said less than 100, less than 200 or something. You're like, no, make it bolder, 150. But yeah, changing of the guard next year, that's for sure. Obviously, good to have him in my final game week team. And I have to admit, when he did walk off, I did feel a little bit emotional, which is very unusual for me when it comes to football, apart from Arsenal winning the league. Just because he'd been never present for us during the time we've been doing this, and it was kind of, it felt like a proper sort of passing of the torch, I guess, onto the next person, whoever that's likely to be going forward. And I think you got very close with one of yours as well, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to figure out whether I got close on the second one, but you'll be able to tell me in a minute, I'm sure, because you always do the digging. But I was very bullish on Bruno this season and thought he'd break his points record. I think if he didn't get injured around Christmas, he would have done it quite comfortably. I think, what was he, 9 points off in the end, something like that. So yeah, very close. I thought maybe DefCon as well would help him out more than it probably did in the end due to that position change. But yeah, close but no cigar. But he did have a mighty good season. So yeah, quite close on that one. Tierno Barry, again, bold claim for a reason, but a lot of the stats guys were quite hot on him coming into the league. At times, he did actually show a little bit as well. I'm still encouraged by bits of what I saw, but he never became a template pick as per the bold prediction. And then the final one was that Esteve coming up with Burnley. Obviously, Burnley's robust defense in the Championship. I didn't think they'd necessarily get many clean sheets, but I did think he'd get a lot of DefCon points. And I don't know how many he actually ended up on. I know he averaged quite well on the 38. So what was he? He was 6 games off of hitting that. So I got 80% of the way there on that one. Not too bad, but again, no points for nearly. So you got one, I got none, and we try again next season, I guess.
Yeah. We'll think about exactly what we're going to do with that next year.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be a new one we can come up with, or we just stick to the same one. Who knows? Let us know. If
you've got any ideas, let us know in the chat or something. Yeah.
And we will claim them as our own.
Of course. Yeah. That's a tradition.
Right. Okay. So on to the end. The end of season awards. We can both agree we can nominate different ones, and we'll try to keep it to FPL rather than Football Focus. So, Team of the Year, Bournemouth, obviously, but I mean, there's not quite that in FPL. Starting off, Goalkeeper of the Year. I don't think anyone cared about keepers this year, did they? Really?
Not really, no. I mean, Raya obviously is a standout, did very well, but I wouldn't actually pick him as my keeper of the year. I think the two that stand out for me are either Rofes at Sunderland, just the element of surprise, had a fantastic first half of the season in particular, loads and loads of big hauls there. And then also for me personally, Kelleher with 2 penalty saves and a few double-digit hauls in the Christmas period was a highlight. So yeah, those would be my 2 nominations. Raya is obvious, but also at times quite boring. What I would say though is he did break the mold of that 2 or 6 pointer towards the end. He got a fair few between 7 and 10 points as well. So yeah, even if he's boring, he did the job. So yeah, I suppose those are the 3. Kelleher for me, with 2 penalty saves in my team, I've got to nominate him.
I'm happy to give it Raya. I mean, it's 1 clean sheet off Peter Cech's record of 19, back-to-back Golden Gloves. I mean, it's boring, but yeah, let's not waste any more time on that one. Defenders, yeah, Gabriel has to be the standout, doesn't he? More boring. Joined the rarefied era of the 200 club despite being central defender. Only Van Dijk in 2018-19. He got 208 points that year. Has also done this. Wing backs obviously have done all sorts. I've mentioned the 30-point thing, 30 starts thing already. Tarko for me this year was huge. There's such a massive amount of points for him that was differential as part of my sort of climb. Another one that kind of a bit like Thiago just stayed on against my wishes, but suddenly became really clutch for me.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, you hated him for so long.
I did.
Well.
I was plotting his demise for so long, and the guy is such a cockroach. He just, as soon as I was thinking of getting rid of him, it was like, oh, just pulls out an 8 points. I was like, fine, you can stay with an old man, but I suspect his time is nigh. I can't rage against dying over like that long. And Spurs is probably new signing Senesi as well with a shout. I'm not sure anyone would have had him as being the 3rd highest scoring defender. I'm going to shout out one person though that neither of us actually own this year, which is Mukiele.
Yeah, that's
proper
what I
hero,
as well.
The highest scoring 4-point hero ever, right?
Yeah, beat Lundstrom, and I think some analysis was done on whether Lundstrom with DefCon would have beaten him, but I still think he would have come up short. Apparently, Lundstrom wasn't very good on DefCon, funnily enough. So yeah, Mukiele, very impressive debut season in the Prem. Yeah, for a 4 million defender coming up with a team that wasn't actually fancied by many outside of Sunderland fans. Sunderland were incredible. Mukiele was incredible. Yeah, it's got to be him as well. I would also nominate, just for old time's sake almost, as a bit of a reminder of what defenders should be or have been in the past, O'Reilly. Fair play. Coming from the Man City Academy, getting forward at every possible opportunity and proving that you don't need to be a DefCon defender to still be FPL relevant. It was a bit of a throwback, and I am absolutely here for it, and long may it continue. So yeah, O'Reilly sneaks in there as a little bit of an honorary mention. But yeah, Gabriel is obviously the best defender this season, but I like the Mukiele vote personally, just for the element of surprise.
I like it. Truffaut actually outscored
everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Truffaut was brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. But O'Reilly didn't always play either. That's the other thing I'll mention. So yeah, Truffaut was brilliant himself, but also quite good on DefCon.
I was quite surprised to see that Matheus Nunes got the most assists, most defenders this year as well. So out of 8,
yeah.
And who knows if Maresca is going to be go along with Pep's project or maybe move him out. But yeah, I mean, all pretty cool. I still think it's got to be Gabriel, but there's definitely other individuals that you can throw into the mix. I do like the Mukiele call there. If we're being straight back, it's got to be Gabriel. Midfielder's obviously Bruno, but he's my player of the season. Spoiler, probably yours as well. So I'm gonna do the Arsenal thing and plump for Declan Rice here. Not because of the heartbeat of Arsenal's team in the football sense, but and maybe also there's a shout for Anderson here. But Rice scored more points. The poster boy, Anderson, for the new era in FPL with the routes to points via DefCon and goal threat plus the assists. I think that Rice probably kind of emblematized the new era of FPL the best. I mean, I remember at the start of the year, in a few drafts, I had Rice in thinking, oh, he'd be a really good pick at 6.5 for all the things that he did offer. And I kind of got scared off him in towards the end, but I kind of, a big regret of mine was not sticking to my guns on that. Obviously, we need to see how that kind of moved forward. But yeah, Anderson, Garner as well, honourable mention to Casemiro as new members of this new breed of midfielder who's suddenly very desirable in FPL. My personal one is Harry Wilson. Just owning him in that purple patch around Christmas was incredible. Getting that 16 pointer versus Burnley was just chef's kiss, especially because he was so low owned then. There was like kind of 3 or 4 weeks where he just did bits and then just disappeared. But yeah, it's very, very, you mentioned it a little while ago, it's very rare that I get a player right on the button of the hot streak. So yeah, that was especially memorable for me. Yeah, for me it's Declan Rice. I'm guessing for you it's Elliot Anderson.
Yeah, I mean it is Elliot Anderson. 5.5 million, 180 points. Are you joking? Absolutely ridiculous. And he got the attacking returns as well in the end. Yeah, I mean, honestly, he's got a shout for player of the season for me. He's been absolutely unbelievable, and he's going to bag himself a £100 million transfer as a result as well. Yeah, I think also, especially considering the amount of people that were raging against a pick like Anderson at the start of the season, not on this parish, of course, but generally across the game, people hated the idea that he'd be a good pick. And honestly, 180 points is beyond what even analytics managers thought he might be on. Yeah, for me, the midfielder of the season, if we're disregarding Bruno for obvious future awards, it's Anderson for me, above Rice, personally. I think that's, yeah, for the price, for the team he's in, for the points per million. Yeah, Anderson, absolute machine.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think it's one of those that I didn't own him all year, I don't think. But one of those that I think I'm more than happy to, given the price difference. I think, it's incredible value. It's just a shame.
Shout out for Dewsbury Hall as well for the price.
Yeah,
well.
yeah, absolutely. That was a more traditional sort of one, wasn't it? In terms of goals and assists rather than anything else. I think he was more just a conduit of the fact that he'd moved from Chelsea and been a bit indifferent, all this sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. If DefCon wasn't a thing, we'd all be like completely in love with Dewsbury Hall this season. He'd be in every single team for the majority of the year. But with DefCon being a thing, other players like Anderson, Garner, Declan Rice all kind of crowd him out a little bit in these kind of mentions. But he also had a very good season himself.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right. Forwards. It's been a bit of a crap year for the forwards, isn't it? I mean, Haaland probably due to loyalty I've had in captaining him. Goes without saying how helpful it is to control variance when we have a player like that in terms of effective ownership. And my personal pots forward of the FOTS, I guess, it's obviously Thiago. Due to what he's done for me in rank this year, massive amount of effective points, and I think he's one that we need to just cast our minds back to the start of the year when he hadn't done anything really. I think he'd been injured for an awfully long time. Brentford were reeling after losing Bumo and Visser, and everyone's like, "Oh, what's going to happen here?" New manager, set piece coach, got this kind of Brazilian, Bulgarian dude up front that analytics have been raving about, but other than that, we don't know anything. And he's kind of finished with 5 goals off Haaland. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, that's incredible. That's an incredible performance for 1 year. And Nobby in the chat just mentioned Bowen as well. 100, he's the second highest scoring forward this year, 187 points in a relegated team, which is obviously brilliant. I mean, we said last year that if Bowen was a midfielder at that price, he'd be basically in every team would just be left. And yeah, I think that he's one of those who's scored those points kind of on the sly almost. There have been kind of, he's one of those that was boom or bust, I guess, especially towards the end of the year where he kind of got massive hauls against like Wolves, Everton, as we saw on Sunday, Leeds. But in other places was kind of more ticking along, getting those DefCons. And Yeah, I think for me, it's probably, if we're being straight bat, it's Haaland. If we're not, I think probably for me personally, it's Thiago.
Yeah, I mean, with these awards, I don't always like defaulting just to the highest point scorer, because often the highest point scorer is also the most expensive one. And Haaland came into the game at an exceptionally premium price. And therefore you should expect more from him. I think that the expectations should be much higher than a Thiago or a Bowen. So for Thiago to run him fairly close, to be a particularly clutch player at times this season for a number of FPL managers, I think people have got happier memories of Thiago this season generally than they do of Haaland, just because the expectations were lower of him. So my vote's actually with Thiago, but Bowen as well. To finish up on 187 points, like Nobby said, in a relegated team is incredibly impressive. And we say it at the start of every single year with Bowen, he is going to get you 20 to 25 attack and returns every year, no matter what. He's always fit. He will always net at about 0.35 XGI per 90, which is not anything special. And he always overperforms on that in terms of the actual output of attack and returns. So yeah, I think Bowen and Thiago are right up there for me. For me, it's Thiago, personally. I think Haaland, given what we know about him, I'd almost be expecting even more from him. I think he was at about par of what I would expect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas Thiago massively shook up the way that the FPL template was built in the first few weeks. So for me, I think it's Thiago.
Small note on Bowen as well, who's out of position as evidence for his DefCon. He was he got DefCon the most of any forward. I think it was he got DefCon on 9 occasions, which is obviously 18 points.
Yeah,
Thiago got it only on 2, so 14 extra points over Thiago. Just purely DefCons. If DefCons didn't exist, Bowen would be down in 4th, I think. He'd go down below Thiago and João Pedro. Just a small note on that one as well. But yeah, interesting to see what happens to Bowen next year, where he goes. If he gets obviously if Danny Dyer are both leaning on him to stay at West Ham, or whether he does move somewhere. Heard on Football Weekly, mooted that he goes back to Hull on loan for a year and then goes back to West Ham. It would be quite funny if it happened, wouldn't it?
Never happened. But yeah, I would pay to watch that. That would be funny.
Well, you probably will be if you're watching Premier League next year. All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of surprises, where Hull are concerned, surprise of the year. I mean, premiums being so awful, maybe. I had Anderson here actually. That's my surprise of the year. Probably, I think you're right to say that, like, in hindsight, he was such an obvious pick at the price. But my goodness, the points that he scored are absolutely insane. It's either him or PS has just said Mukiele. Yeah. Those two kind of fit quite nicely. And maybe I was looking at the points and kind of doing an ipso facto. But yeah, I just feel like that kind of works for me in some way, shape, or form. I think Traffert has a really good case, and Senesi as well. Both have very good cases for being surprises of the year. Like, I don't think anyone would have had Senesi being the 3rd highest point scorer amongst defenders, nor Traffert, who's got a few DefCons, but was it 6 assists and a goal? I mean, that's pretty good for a 4.5 million. That's great value, especially when they became a lot more kind of defensively solid, especially when Semenyo left.
Absolutely. I agree with all of those. I think Anderson's got a great shout for it. Mukiele, we've already mentioned, was very surprising. I'll add in 2 more. Krupi, hitting the record amount for a teenager in terms of Premier League goals. So yeah, Krupi definitely up there for me, especially at the price point as well. Very impressive. And he didn't even really get a consistent run of starts for quite a while in the Premier League. So he's definitely in the mix there. And then I've also, as a bit of a rogue one, put in Morgan Gibbs-White. My reasoning for that is, if you look at the underlying data, a bit like Bowen, he's miles off it every year in terms of like actual attacking data. You wouldn't expect him to be hitting, I think it was 15 Premier League goals in the end this season. So he's massively overperformed on expectations there. And he kind of came out of nowhere with about 10 weeks to go of the season. So he's not just a surprise in terms of the entire campaign, but also a surprise within the season itself for him to kind of just come from no man's land in the midfield category to almost being borderline the best midfielder in the game for a 10-week stretch at the end. I think he's got himself an honorary mention there, but I like Elliot Anderson in this category. I really like Mukiele in this category as well. So I'm happy with either of them.
All right. At this point of the year, has to be Mo Salah, I think.
Yeah.
I can't really. Maybe Palmer's in with a shout there. Injury hasn't helped him. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's. You could probably throw. I mean, I was thinking, like, in terms of WGTA and how much we loved this guy last year, that Johan Visser has to have a massive shout in this. Like,
I
we
forgot
bloody
about
loved
him.
it. Last year, he was forward of the season for us. We were saying, the amount of like non-penalty XG numbers and what a brilliant player he was. And then this year, we haven't mentioned him. Apart
Not
from
once.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that's definitely going to come to mind for me. Verts mentioned the channel in channel as well. I don't know. I think that was more of a football nerd thing, maybe that one Verts. But yeah, I think kind of all the players that we have, WGTA one has to be Visser actually. But yeah, Salah and Palmer probably are the two, and Salah's obviously the main disappointment, I think. But yeah, it was basically the dying light, I think, when it comes to Mo, sadly.
Agreed. I mean, it was always going, like, with every player, it happens eventually. But yeah, Salah has to go down as a huge disappointment versus what you'd expect from him generally. I'd also throw Isak in there, but it always feels harsh to throw in a player that's just basically been injured for the season. But it's a disappointment versus like what we actually thought he'd be doing this year for Liverpool. So yeah, I think it is Salah realistically, but yeah, Visser, Isak as well in there, Palmer just generally. Premiums overall have been generally quite disappointing.
Yeah,
Salah for me.
All right, team of the season. My kind of footballing ones is Bournemouth. Just mentioned in the chat as well. Losing your entire defense and still managing to do that, incredible. We'll see how Marco Rosa does versus Iraola. Whether it was an Iraola thing or whether it was a structure thing in Bournemouth about recruiting well,
and losing Semenyo halfway through the year.
Yeah, incredible how they absorbed that.
They're unbeaten in the second half of the season after that. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Team wise, I'm going to say Arsenal, aren't I? But I'm more interested to see what you think.
Mine actually is Bournemouth, to be fair. In terms of FPL team, there haven't really been like many standout FPL teams. Like Man City at times have been really disappointing. Like obviously Haaland and O'Reilly have been fine. Arsenal have been a great team, but outside of Gabriel, in terms of consistently being able to pick players, forwards wise, not very much. Saka has been a disappointment for me at times. Rice, I never picked him at the right time, so I can't really say like he's in the mix for me. Timber was actually very disappointing for me as well. So I don't think I can personally pick Arsenal as my like FPL team of the season. Liverpool have obviously been horrendous. Chelsea the same. Man United at times, but it's mainly just Bruno. I think I revert to probably Bournemouth. I'm struggling really for like one specific team.
You're right.
I don't think there's much. Brentford possibly as an outside shout. But yeah.
But FPL wise, it's literally just Thiago.
Kelleher for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and Kelleher actually. You are right though, but it's hard to kind of point the finger at a single team that has just been kind of a mainstay in our squads for the entire season. And like, if things had transpired differently, we may be thinking, Man United, if, as you mentioned earlier, if Bruno, Bumo and Ballon d'Orgu, as has been mentioned in the chat, all ended up staying fit and ended up kind of playing a lot, suddenly we'd be saying, these three players were absolute warriors for us throughout the year. It didn't really happen that there was one particular. Obviously, Man City players, I think, have got the most kind of scoring over 150 points. But I mean, that's kind of to be expected almost. So I suppose kind of purely on the FPL points, you say Man City, but kind of anecdotally, I can't kind of highlight a single side in terms of FPL and say that they played a massive role in my team this year beyond the obvious. Yeah, maybe that's just events to avoid events. But yeah, it's a tricky one, that one. It's a tricky one. And finally, player of the year, got to give it to Bruno, haven't you? Relentless consistency.
Yeah, double-digit hauls far beyond anyone else in the game. And even baking in the first 7 or 8 weeks where he was incredibly unlucky not to get more. I think he missed 2 penalties. There were quite a few missed golden opportunities from his teammates as well. So it could have been even more in the end. So yeah, Bruno has been unbelievable. I will also, Bruno's my pick, by the way, but I will also honorary mention very close second place for Gabriel, who in terms of actual points per start for a defender, to be basically matching and beating Haaland and Bruno for points per start this season is unbelievably good. So it's always difficult with a defender, especially when you're thinking about captaincy. It's tough to do because the weeks where you want to captain him are the weeks where they're less likely to get the bonus points and goals are scored in those games as well. So you want to go after the goal scorer. So you're rarely likely to put him at the top of the pile for captaincy. And therefore it's quite hard to say he's your player of the season because if you never captain him. But I think Gabriel definitely deserves a fair shout here. For me, for his explosive nature, for the fact that I wanted him to do well this year as well, it is Bruno Fernandes for me.
Yep. All right. I'm with you on that one. I can't really argue with it that much. Well, that's it. That's basically another year done, Sam. Yeah, we've done it. We're here. We survived just about. Any summer plans for you? I know you've got something coming up, haven't you? I can't remember what. Are you getting a new house, new job, new pet or something?
No new house. I think it's coming home, but no new house. No, I am getting married in a month tomorrow, so I'm very much full steam ahead on that now. FPL has kindly stopped just in time for that. I would be lying if I said I didn't plan the date around the fact that the season would be over. But of course, we've got the World Cup to look forward to as well. And I am going to play a little bit of World Cup fantasy, but as a pure viewer, I won't be making content on it or anything. I'm literally just going to piss around with it basically and have some fun. But yeah, not taking that particularly seriously. But yeah, getting married in a month and a day. So yeah, wish me luck for that, I guess. And when you next see me, I will be a married man, I hope.
Yeah, and that is what's going to Sam 2.0 as an honest man. That's what's going to be your new era in FPL.
That's what's been holding me back.
Exactly. Well, I'm not married, so who knows? But those points are all good. It's going to change for you, and that's what matters.
What about you? What are you up to this summer?
I am looking after children and working. I'm not playing World Cup Fantasy. I've got no plans to. It's always quite full on for me. I'm very all or nothing, as I'm sure a lot of you know. So I'm not going to be able to. If I got into it, I'll get really into it, and I just can't do that at the moment. Especially, I already spend a lot of weekends and obviously one night a week doing something fantasy football wise. I wouldn't be doing content or anything, but I'd still be spending too much time on it, and I think it's probably just good to focus on my family for a little bit.
Absolutely, that's the right call. That's the right decision. What I'm doing is not the right decision. But yeah, you deserve the break, especially ahead of a big season for WGTA next one.
Yeah, 10 years. Blimey. It's been
where does the time go, eh?
Where does the time go, indeed? Oh, God. There we go. Cool. We go. Well, I think that's everything for this year, isn't it?
I think so. We can try and long it out as much as we like, but all that there's really left to say is, first of all, congratulations to Crystal Palace on their first European trophy tonight. That's huge news. So if you're a Palace fan listening, I hope you're celebrating in the right way, and a great swan song for Glasner as well. In the meantime, though, the most important thing of all, thank you all so much for listening and for watching for this entire season and indeed tonight. We have been Who Got the Assist. You can find us on Blue Sky at Who Got the Assist, all written out one word. FPL Pricey for me on there. On X, it's WGTA_FPL. Again, I'm just FPL Pricey on there. And on YouTube, it's Who Got the Assist, all written out in one word. And again, I'm FPL Pricey on there. And do make sure you subscribe to both of those for the first video of next season. If you did enjoy the pod, please do give us a follow on those channels. Give the pod a 5-star rating one final time before you log off for the year. And if you're watching along, leave a like, hit subscribe as well. We do really appreciate it. And again, thank you so much for bearing with us this season. We do massively appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, everybody. Back in July when the game reopens. So thank you for all the support this year. We hope we assisted you. See you next season.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist?